Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Redesign Your Life Through the Power of Breath. Transform how you feel, think, and live from the inside out. My name is Stephen Dyna. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I'm thrilled to be with you here because breathwork really constituted one of the most important elements of my spiritual path for many years and really opened the portal to deep spiritual experiences, to emotional healing. So I know personally the power of this work, and we're going to get to explore how conscious breathwork can really transform your life with one of the world's leading pioneers. His name is Anthony Abbagnano. He's a visionary thought leader. He's a breathwork expert. He's taught a number of shift programs, and he just exudes the kind of grace and depth and wisdom that I think we're all aspiring to. So, Anthony, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Well, thank you, Stephen. It's a great pleasure to be back again with you, Shift folks, and I'm excited to spend some time with you.
Well, we're going to dive in. I know you've got some experiential elements for us today, and I also want to let everyone know up front that we are going to have a brand new program with Anthony called Conscious Connected Breathwork that we'll share a little bit more about towards the end of the hour. So, Anthony, I'd love for you to share a bit about your journey and really why breath became such a central component of your path of awakening and transformation.
Gosh, the only thing you might have to kind of give me a timeout sign because I could talk about this for hours. But I'll try to keep it short and concise for you. I was a young man, very young. I was 8 years old when I first discovered the importance of the breath. And at that point, I was in boarding school already in England, and I wasn't living a happy life. I really would have been, I think, happier with my family. And so I was kind of homesick and grim, miserable, and I got teased a lot because I'm half Italian, and this was a very English school. And then some kid came up to me and he put a paper bag in front of my face and he said, "Take a few breaths into this." And so I did, and he made me take 20 breaths. And then from behind, he squeezed my chest and had me exhale and laid me down to the ground. And I had the most extraordinary experience I ever had. And for me, that was really what opened me to the concept of a much greater power than the reality that I was immersed in at the time. And it gave me a sense of hope, and it gave me, some people talk about near-death experiences where the question is already answered. You have that feeling of complete peace because there's no fear, there's no worry, there's no concern anymore. And the immensity of that experience kind of put everything to rights, that all the things that I was unhappy about in my life all of a sudden seemed so tiny in comparison to the wealth of what I discovered. So it was a very life-changing experience for me. And I didn't become a breath worker at 8 years old, but I did return to the breath every time that I felt threatened or upset or hurt. And I think that's really what I would love to introduce to you folks, is the concept of your breath actually being your best friend and something that you can really lean into whenever you feel a little upended or concerned, and at times when you need a boost of creativity or excitement or passion as well.
Beautiful. Well, not necessarily recommended to just jump in with an 8-year-old, but it was a good introduction to the power of breath. But let's talk a little bit about first the why. Why is breath such a powerful portal to higher dimensions of ourselves and to healing in general?
Well, okay. First of all, it's one of the only functions that we can let occur without our intervention or control. And at the same time, we can control it. And there's something magical about when we do give it our attention. There's a magical, I call it alchemy, of course, because alchemy is what I teach. And so attention and breath equals something bigger, something that we may not have considered before. And so I feel it helps us develop a new point of view to any life situation that we face. And my why is honestly, we live in a world that is troubled, is full of conflict, and I won't use nasty words to describe how nasty the world can be. But I'm here, my purpose of using the breath is really to help people navigate their way through this human mess that exists and create a sense of inner calm, even though the world outside is in chaos, and to become the opposite of being influenced from the outer world, begin to have a positive influence on our outer world instead.
Hmm. So yeah, it's clear that there is a lot that we have to navigate as humans, a lot of very traumatizing things these days, and it's from the media to family situations. And so share a little bit about how what happens with our breath when we're in situations that elicit fear or trauma.
Well, we lose it. And one way I would describe emotional intelligence would be to take a breath when you don't want to.
Hmm.
In other words, when you feel that tension rising, which is crowding out our natural thought processes, as we get more anxious, we begin to lose our awareness of choices, eventually until we get into panic or trauma, and we only have those three choices of freeze, fight, or flight. So, what we can recognize as soon as we're beginning to feel a degree of tension, we can begin to use our breath in conscious ways that can really give us the sense of calm that we need and create the space. So, that one breath that you take when you didn't want to, for example, could be the opportunity to choose another 5 breaths or another 10 breaths and just let things settle a little bit and to get a sense of proportion and spaciousness where we're feeling too pressured or too cramped.
Hmm. How do you recommend in terms of starting to engage with conscious breathing? How much do you start with just witnessing your breath versus like starting to work with it, change it, amplify it in different ways?
Yeah, exactly. You hit the nail on the head. The best thing to do is to start noticing it. In fact, if you're diligent enough and you start to keep notes of the way that you're breathing in certain conditions. So if you're excited, you're breathing a certain way. If you're feeling pressured or fearful, you breathe a different way. If you're ready to go to sleep, you notice how your breath is. If you're meditating, you notice how your breath is. And you just make a catalog or even a mental catalog of how you breathe with those different conditions. And then you can purposely breathe that way to recreate those conditions. So I'm not saying anybody would want to breathe themselves into anxiety, but if you're sleepy, if you're feeling sleepy and listless and you lackluster and you don't have any vigor, you would breathe perhaps a sharper breath that would awaken you. So some big puffs to help waken you up and get the blood circulating around your body. Or if you're making love and you don't want to have an orgasm too quickly, you might want to slow down your breath so you can actually witness more of what's going in your whole body. And so once you've collected that catalog, you can then kind of dip into it and explore it and see the effects you can create. And what we're actually doing is reverse manipulating our nervous system. We're learning how to control or hack our nervous system in a way that can really create the inner atmosphere that we want. So we greet the world in a different way.
Hmm. So you're less of an advocate for like a particular kind of breathing and more noticing what we naturally do for self-soothing, for eliciting certain states, for relaxation. So there's more variability with each individual.
Yeah, there is. And we all have our own ways of breathing. And I started off by saying developing intimacy with your breath,
Hmm.
because I think that's the most important thing. We also do breath work, as in the conscious connected breath, and we'll be exploring that. But I don't want to skip out the small steps. I want people to really appreciate the value of the breath. For me, when we use the word inspire, we're bringing in spirit. We're bringing, we claim to be spiritual beings, but if we're really going to explore this thoroughly, then we get to look at the power of each breath and what it's actually doing with this body. As I live in this kind of frenetic, mundane, dense existence of appointments and things to remember and things to do and accomplishments and goals and relationships and all of these things that all the outside stimuli that are sometimes battering us and hounding us, then what would it look like to actually remind myself that I am a spiritual being in a body, that I'm living in a body for these years that I'm alive, but what would it be like to actually bring in more spiritual awareness or spiritual connection into our lives?
Hmm. So it sounds like you're really working with breath over the whole cycle of our day rather than just like a specific, 1 hour. I mean, I imagine you do that as well, but maybe talk about a little bit the difference between just that continuous breath awareness throughout the day and like a more intentional time of practice.
I was just on the airport bus to the long-term parking about 2 hours ago, and we didn't get off at our stop for the car, and I wanted to be on time for us to meet today, and so I felt stressed by that. So I just dropped into my breath, and my wife said, "What are you thinking?" I said, "I'm thinking about breathing right now." And so I think that's a perfect example of how we can employ this intimacy with the breath at any time, whenever we feel any pressure, anything that's deflecting us from what we would like to be our true course. That could be focus, for example, or it could be a musician wanting to create a song and getting stuck, getting into a creative block, or a writer, or anybody of that nature, any time in your life, once you've developed that friendship. And I believe that the breath is our best friend ever. It's more important to me than even anyone in my family, because if I don't come to my family with that kind of awareness, I'm going to fall into patterns and habits that are not good. They're not healthy, and I'm not going to appreciate as much the people that I'm with. So I think what we're talking about here is learning to use breath as a way to be fully present. And that means fully receiving what you're saying to me, fully receiving what life is saying to me, and exploring it. And it's honestly, it's such an exciting way to live, because I never got into video games. I think I'm too old for that, but it kind of that compelling draw, that magnetic pull towards exploring life with excitement and curiosity and wonder, like a child would. And I think that's what it gives us when we learn that it really is with us all the time.
Mm. So you call a lot of your work conscious connected breath work. So I think all of this is you're kind of laying some philosophical foundations for that. So are there specific patterns or practices that you, or is it just the principle of how you engage breath all around all these different phases and moments and just building intimacy? Or maybe just give us a little bit more sense of what you mean by conscious connected breath work then.
Well, a conscious connected breath is a very simple breath. It's really is very low on technique, although some people say you can use this technique or another one, and one is better than the other. But actually, what I've found most effective about a conscious connected breath is that if I breathe in and out and join every breath, so I don't hesitate or pause between every breath, that's what we call a conscious connected breath. Now, if I do that and fill all the way to the top, and I'll give you an example now, if you breathe inwards as far as you can and you hold your breath for 5 seconds, and then you inhale more, you'll find that you create more space. Let's try it together. Let's try and inhale together. Breathe in all the way you can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and inhale more. And you'll find that you can top up just a little bit. And now if you exhale slowly, you'll find that already there's an effect. You can already feel something that's different. And that's changing because we don't breathe that fully that often. And this time, what we proved to ourselves is that the bigger a breath we take, the bigger breath we can take, because the lungs are elastic. And this is a great exercise for those of you that have toxins in your lungs and you want to clean them out. This is actually using all of the lungs, even the lowest lobe. And then it can stir up the toxins so you can exhale them. So it's a very healthy practice to do in the mornings. But the reason I'm showing it to you is if you do a breath up to the top and then connect it to your exhale, like I'm breathing an enormous quantity of oxygen. And if you want to take it from a spiritual perspective, I'm inspiring a lot of spirit. And something happens when we do that. If we just try 5 of those together, you'll feel even more different than you did after one. Would you like to try it?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. I'm going to breathe through my mouth so you can hear me. Or I don't actually, you probably can't hear me because of original sound. So just watch my hands and follow my hands as you breathe, and breathe all the way to the top and then a little bit less than fully out. So then you can pick up your breath again. So we'll exhale to inhale, exhale, and then inhale, breathe all the way to the top through the nose is fine. And then seamlessly let the breath go again. And just before you get to the bottom, bring up that breath again all the way to the top, and then an easy, gentle exhale and up again all the way to the top, and then an easy, gentle exhale, 2 more, up all the way to the top, and then an easy exhale, and 1 more time, up all the way to the top again, and then an easy exhale and relax. Now, perhaps with your eyes closed, you can sense something that is different because of what you've just done. And when we do the conscious connected breath with alchemy, with the alchemy of breath, we do this for a minimum of, say, 30 minutes. So just 5 breaths, you can see something is shifting. And when we continue that and we extend that, it's as if each breath builds upon the last one, and they stack. We're stacking the breath, and we're actually stacking our consciousness too. So as we do this, we're increasing the oxygen in our bloodstream and actually slowing the oxygen that goes to the frontal thinking brain. And when we do this, we begin to create more space between our thoughts. And you know how the Buddhists say we have about 60,000 thoughts a day. So what we're doing is we're actually creating a bit of a gap between the thoughts. And it's in that gap that some other awareness can come in, and we begin to think differently. That's why this is such a great breath work if you're feeling stuck, or you've got some kind of a situation that isn't shifting, or you want something to come in that you're not familiar with. It's a great practice.
Mm. I wonder if you can speak to some of what might, because I know when you start to do some of the deeper intentional breathing, a lot of emotional material from the past can come up, and how you approach that with your conscious connected breath work.
Yeah, thank you. This is so important to breathe and feel. You may have noticed in your life that the more upset you are, the shorter your breath becomes. Even the more happy you are, the shorter your breath becomes. And so therefore we kind of leave equanimity behind and we become emotional, but then we kind of block the emotion. And many of us in today's world have lost the ability to feel. I have many people who come to me and say, I don't really know what I feel. I don't know how to understand my feelings, especially people who are very busy or hyperactive. And we unconsciously invest in not feeling anything. In our world today, there are so many ways to avoid our feelings. It's quite possible to go through life just watching enough television, taking enough mood regulating medication, or drinking, or spending, shopping, or addictions of some kind or another, that unfortunately ways that stop us from truly feeling who we are. And at the same time, we call ourselves sentient beings. we name ourselves the most sentient of beings, but sentient means to feel. Sentire in Latin means to feel. And here we are taking these pills and using these coping systems to hide ourselves from our feelings. Well, what can happen when we breathe is that we unblock emotions so they can flow again. And I like to say, breathe and feel and heal. So if you'll allow yourself to feel at the same time as you breathe, you begin to let these emotions move again. And what I find in my practice is that people who've tried to keep a feeling away, when they allow that feeling to flow again, first of all, they're surprised because it's not nearly as bad as they thought it would be. Things
Mm,
like fear, for example, they just get bigger because we try run the other way. But if we turn around and look at our fear and say, hey, I'm here and I'm breathing, then the fear can pass again. And it's never as big as we thought it was going to be. And
mm,
guess what? If we can let those feelings flow, then behind them are all the joyful, wonderful, happy feelings that get to flow too. And it's as if they've been corked up in a bottle and they haven't been able to be experienced. So, what we're talking about when we learn to feel and breathe is living a much richer life. And when we give our attention to our breath, imagine how many breaths we've lost as a result of those impacts or those traumas. And when we give our attention to our breath, we can imagine taking that breath back to all those times that we lost it. There's
mm,
something profoundly healing about this. And a session of conscious connected breath at the very least invigorates us, revives us, makes us feel more creative and alive. But in some deeper sessions, we find some apparently miraculous shifts that can happen, turning points, pivotal moments of being able to understand problems that we couldn't figure out before, being able to approach things like forgiveness, compassion, atonement, introspection, really understanding how to love ourselves and each other as human beings in such a much kinder way.
mm.
How can we go wrong? I mean, that's why I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I get to do this for my living and I help people understand how wonderful it can be. It kind of feels like giving the candy back to the baby.
I love that metaphor. I want to ask you a little bit about bigger traumas, things that are a little more daunting for people to go back into. How do you, I know there's been more emphasis in recent years on titration and sort of like kind of like building capacity to sort of touch into particularly difficult incidents, and just how do you navigate that with conscious connected breath work?
Well, first of all, I work a lot with trauma, and the specialty that I work with trauma has a lot to do with inner child work and shadow work. Most of the traumas that have been most devastating for us are ones that happened in those first years of our life. And what happens when that occurs is that we isolate from the memory because that's our way of coping. But what we forget is that there's a part of us that did get frozen in that trauma. And when we isolate from the memory of the trauma, sadly, we isolate from the child that we were at that time. And so we become a little more dour, a little more sour in our lives, and we lose the ability to have joy. The way I work with breath work and trauma is certainly with titration and physical release, but I believe it really needs to be accomplished by psychological release as well. And that's not so easy. One of the problems, as I said, when we're traumatized is we lose our choice, and we need to restore that choice. And so, what I encourage people to do when they use breath work with trauma is to use that sense of choice as an adult conscious being that I am today to go back and actually rescue that inner child that I once was. And if I can make that choice and I can go back and help him, or if you're a woman, her, or anyone in between, whoever it might be, if we can go back and restore life to that part of us that's been stuck behind trauma, frozen in a stifled environment because we stopped breathing in that moment, then we can really begin to put our pieces back together again. And so that wonderful poem of Humpty Dumpty, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, and Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, and all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. So instead of looking to our doctors or outer therapists or medications to try and put us together again, we actually do that from inside out in a choiceful way.
Hmm.
And this is why I believe that in this world of outer chaos, we really can create an oasis of calm inside by doing this work.
Hmm. Beautiful. I wonder if we said we would talk a little bit about how you can reverse engineer your state of being and really sort of almost like cultivate certain qualities that you're wanting to bring in that you might be sort of not in connection with or that help you manifest something. I wonder if you share a little bit more about that process as well.
Well, I think it's like working with the conclusion and working back to the beginning, because we've talked about the conscious connected breath, we've talked about breath intimacy, but what we haven't really opened up, and this is something, if I could offer a little mini meditation for people to really appreciate the proportion of how the breath, how important the breath is in our lives. Because if we take a moment to remember what that first breath might have been like, or those of you who've had children who were fortunate enough to be there to watch that first breath and just to consider the miracle at hand, we get some idea of the immensity. And, that inhale of like complete unconditional gasp of life. I mean, here I am. Wow. So we forget after that first breath, what we just take it for granted, right? We just hurry to our appointments and we go and do things, and we're late or we're early, and we live until we consider what that last breath might be like. And again, for those of us who have been fortunate enough to assist someone in those last breaths or be with a family member for those last breaths, we understand the weight and the gravity and the significance of this breath. This, as we contemplate our own, we know that there's nothing we can take with us. No credit cards, no lists, no memories, no data, nothing. We're just exhausted and we're expiring. And in the middle, we forget. So what I would love to do, I feel in a very, very sweet way, an elegant way, is to just take a few minutes together where we can understand the quality of the miracle at hand, to
Hmm.
get some sense of proportion of how just one breath contains the hugeness. One small breath contains the hugeness of the atmosphere. So if we could do that together, I'd appreciate it. And I'd love people to get an idea. Perhaps you could let your eyes close, and we'll take one inhale and make a sound with this inhale. You can listen to your own voice at whatever pitch it wants to be that's comfortable for you. And notice if you can let your body settle just a little bit more. Maybe there's some sensation of your body feeling a little heavier, or if there's tension in your body, you can see if you can release it just a little bit with your breath. And as you breathe, see if you can use each exhalation to settle a little bit more. and using each breath to just soften a little bit and letting any outside sounds in the room be evident or in the space around you. Let them be there. And as you notice them, see if you can let them go. And begin to focus a little more on the inside of your body. In fact, let any outer sounds remind you to turn inwards, knowing that the blood is coursing its way through your veins and that your heart is pumping and your organs are all working as an orchestra perfectly to keep you here now. And I'm going to invite you to a little journey, a little visualization, as we breathe gently, any breath that's comfortable for you. And I'm going to ask you to consider that you're in front of the door. Imagine that you're in front of a door. That can be any size door, any shape door, any color you like. But there's some sense of excitement, perhaps, or curiosity as you put your hand on the door handle and you turn it and you open this door. And you enter a chamber, a beautiful chamber. It's almost a sacred chamber. And it's of your own making. It could be full of gilt and silver and studded with jewelry. Or it could be very simple. A little mud hut with a grass roof. Whatever it is that appeals to you. And you stand in this chamber and you notice the beauty, how much it pleases you. Always breathing, just breathing gently. You notice on the far side of this room, there's a table. And this table has a cloth on it. And on top of this cloth is a chalice. And again, this chalice is of your own design. It could be as simple as a terracotta pot, or it could be a beautiful carved silver or golden chalice. But as you notice it, you feel a sense of how special it is. And you're drawn to walk towards it, to hold it, to know what might be inside it. And so you start to walk towards it, and you may feel that with each step that there's something in your body that's resonating with this sense of vibration or excitement or wonder is increasing. And so you arrive at this table and you look down at this chalice and you see that there's liquid. Beautiful honey-colored liquid. It's so tempting to taste this liquid, and you pick up this chalice and you hold it close to you so you can take the perfume, take the aroma from this liquid and look deep down into it. It seems like it's bottomless. You take this chalice to your lips and you touch this nectar to your lips and you taste it. And as you taste it, you're moved. You're so moved to taste the nectar of life. It contains all the secrets and all the mysteries and all the joys and all the challenges of your own very life. And this nectar is the symbol of your breath. And just that one sip connects you to everything. Consider the grandness of what's in this breath. Consider the magnificence. And know that if you take one breath this way, with this focus and this awareness, that breath is an act of worship. That is what has given you life. So as you breathe these next few breaths, notice the importance of each tiny moment of each breath, the infinite hugeness. And see if you can accept this in your life as your power of grace, that you can connect to infinite understanding, to the nectar that provides you the life force to be here. And so now, as we begin to make our way back to this room around us, perhaps you can rub your hands together to create some warmth, and then gently place them over your face. And then with your fingers and your eyes closed, discover this face, as if you had no sight at all and you were using your fingers. Just discover this face that is your face. Explore with your fingers. And before we open our eyes, say one thank you and perhaps bow to this breath that has sustained you till now. Bow with gratitude for being chosen, being lent each breath. Now, when you're ready, you can open your eyes again.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you, Anthony. The sweetness and the tenderness in that. And there's just such a beautiful way of like really connecting with our breath in a spirit of reverence and gratitude that you really embody.
Yeah. So that's the beginning, right? So if we can do that, then we can, when we create intimacy, we understand how each breath is a pivotal moment.
Mm.
And then when we go into a conscious connected breath, we understand, wow, this is a session. This is a real opportunity to change my life. It's a succession of these conscious breaths and how significant that becomes.
Mm. Beautiful. Well, I want to spend some time talking about your upcoming program, your upcoming course, because it's such a beautiful way to invite this deeper level of intimacy, connection with our breath and with our deepest self. And it's really clear in having your decades of experience and mentoring people all over the world, beautiful relationship you've developed with breath as a tool for transformation, for opening ourselves to our divinity, to our full expression in the world, our passion. And this is important medicine in a time of chaos, as we've talked about. So Anthony's agreed to teach this brand new program for Shift. It's called Conscious Connected Breathwork. Use the power of breath to redesign how you feel, think, and live from the inside out. You can find it at the URL consciousbreathworkcourse.com, consciousbreathworkcourse.com. It's a 7-week program. There are no prerequisites. You don't have to have any experience with breath. In fact, this is a great way to develop a practice if you've never explored one. And if you've been on a path using breath, then this really deepens and gives more dimensions to it as well. So Anthony, I'd love for you to share in your own words about some of your intentions for the program and what people will come away with. And then we'll go through the modules and give a preview of what's coming for each.
Thank you. Yes, my intention for this is to equip you, no matter where you are in your journey, in your life journey, or in your journey with the breath, to give you equipment that you've actually had, but perhaps not noticed, and to discover ways that we can use the breath to enhance, embolden, enliven, enrich your life. And my final intention as a result of doing this course would be to have you create an action plan, an actionable way forwards. So we're going to be working together for 7 sessions, and I would love for you to have a 7-week program afterwards, so you can think about each subject as we visit it each week and play with it that week, but also begin to contemplate, well, okay, after this is over, what happens? I really don't want you to forget what you gain. I'd love for you to have some momentum and a way to remain empowered and to continue to empower yourself. That's really my goal, is that you can become autonomous of me and become your own teacher with the breath.
It's a wonderful intention. So module 1, awaken your breath awareness to reduce stress and increase mindfulness and calm.
That's right. I think this is really so critical that in every stressful situation, we design a way that we can remember that we can create an oasis of calm. And so we're going to be playing with the breath. We're going to be playing with some inquiry and some questions as well, and breath exercises, so we can begin to go beyond where we've gone today as our starting point, and begin to understand that, oh my goodness, there are 3 or 4 different ways from today onwards that I can employ the breath to help me when I'm confronted by that rise of adrenaline. And you know what that's like. We know what that's like. You're going to say something you didn't want to say, but you're going to say it anyway. There are those kinds of moments that we can create an interruption and then use that interruption to create more awareness and more mindfulness.
Module 2, transform your inner state to create calm in the midst of turbulence.
So I used that quote in the beginning that to me, a demonstration of emotional intelligence is the ability to take a breath when you don't want to. So when you take that breath, then what happens? What processes can we put into place that don't become just moments of, oh, I wish I could have done that, but can actually be moments of traction? How can we create traction from awareness? Not so it's a momentary flash, but we can actually begin to connect these moments into movement. And that's what module 2 is going to be about.
Module 3, breath is a path to resilience and a steady mind and heart.
So we've got traction, we've got moment, and we've got movement. Now we want momentum. We want to actually travel with this and to understand that things that would have beaten us down in the past or wounded us so deeply are actually opportunities to raise our baseline so we don't have to climb back up off the floor when we get flattened. We might get wobbly, but we do know that we can bounce back again. And that's what module 3 is all about.
Module 4, understand your hero's journey to move beyond negative self-talk and embrace a fuller sense of self-acceptance.
I love this because it's one of my favorite subjects. But a little hint about this class is that something else is always waiting to happen. Now, why do we keep forgetting that? So we're going to look at that. We're going to double click on that. We're going to open that subject up a bit and understand that there's something at play here that we might be forgetting in those moments that we feel most negative and self-judgmental, and see if there isn't a better way forwards.
Module 5, transform your passion into compassion by using breath as a pathway to nurture relationships and reach beyond the self.
You know, the word passion and compassion are very similar, right? Compassion means coming together in passion. And I love how breath works for people to understand each other in different ways. Breath has saved my marriage more than once. We have an agreement that I'll share with you in class, and I suggest you might want to do it as well. That is when all chips are down and things are really not working, that there are ways to achieve that depth of compassion and understanding that means it's not all about me. There's something that I can really share of myself, and that's my understanding of you.
Module 6, gain clarity on the 3 specific areas of your life you'd like to continue transforming as you integrate conscious breathwork into your daily life.
This is really where we start to initiate the program that we're going to co-create. And so I'm going to be asking you to prioritize what are the 3 major areas that you do want to work on. You may want to consider that from now on, because as you live life, you might come up with 10 or 15, but you might then also be able to discover which are the 3 most important ones. And those are the ones that we want to create a way of measuring your progress. So after our course is over, that you can still notice and appreciate yourself and use the breath, the conscious connected breath, to keep working with yourself.
Finally, Module 7, integration and celebration. Create an actionable plan for bringing these new breathwork practices into your daily life so you'll feel clear and confident on your next steps.
So let's see, action, traction, acknowledgement. And this is where we just get to celebrate together. We're going to dot the final I's and cross the final T's, but without acknowledgement and celebration, we can't really get traction and maintain the movement that we have. We just forget and we get back down on ourselves and we slide the wrong way. We want to go forwards, not backwards. So this is about how are you going to go forward into your life? Instead of going back to your life, we want you to go forward into your life. What are the practices you're going to use that work for you, that sustain these 3 specific areas that you've chosen to work on? We want you to have practices and next steps laid out, and we want to help each other with this as a community.
Well, what a beautiful program, and it's really clear what a master you are of all of these teachings. You've really put these into motion in your life and with thousands of students. So really fortunate to have this program. Again, it's all at consciousbreathworkcourse.com. In addition to the 7 90-minute live sessions with Anthony, which we've just described, those are great times to answer your questions live. And also you're going to get recordings of every session, both video and audio. So you can go back and you do the practices again and really get the core teachings into your life. There's word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight. There's weekly exercises for home. There's a Facebook community to support you and deepen your experience and also build connections around the world, which are really rich as part of the ongoing journey. On the page, you'll also see there are a number of extra bonuses that we've added to enhance your journey. There's an audio breathwork practice with Anthony called Boost Your Creativity. So it's a little more targeted offer there. You want to share a little bit about Boost Your Creativity?
Well, it's nice, short, sweet, and quick. And I use it myself. I love to use it when I'm writing and I'm feeling a little bit in the doldrums and things aren't rolling out too well. So I recommend it if you want to have fun, if you want to do something while you're on holiday, if you need creativity in your work life, give it a go. I believe it will help.
That's a great extra bonus. And there's another bonus. It's also an audio practice with Anthony called Change Your Perspective. You want to share about that bonus as well?
Yeah, I use that one when I'm in the grumps, when I'm grumbly hateful instead of humbly grateful. So think of the times that you slip into the wrong one of those, and that's a great time to use that program.
I love the contrast, grumbly hateful versus gratefully humble. And then there's one special bonus that folks get if you sign up by midnight tonight. We like to do this as a way to really encourage you to go to the page and consciousbreathworkcourse.com and tune in about if this is the right next step for you. And so if you do move forward today, you're going to get a full 1 hour guided breath work. This is a chance to really go deep into an inner journey with Anthony's guidance. And you want to share a little bit more about the power of that bonus?
Well, it's enormous. I keep meeting people in the street who tell me that they bought this 1 hour breath work 4 years ago, or 10 years, I think it was 8 years ago when I first did it. And they said, I still use it every day. So if you really want to go full hog and have a daily practice or even a weekly practice, this is a great way to do it. You can take it with you. And of course, you don't, not driving or when you're operating machinery, please. But when you create space for yourself and you really want to award yourself what you truly deserve, it's a wonderful, wonderful breath work. So I recommend them all. They're all useful tools.
That's a great extra reason to go ahead and sign up right away. And we have a money back guarantee of your satisfaction. So there's really no risk in doing so. So it's going to be a really such a blessing as a program. We've kept the investment very accessible, just 3 payments of $128. You save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start January 7th and run Tuesdays at 9 Pacific, noon Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community as well. There's on the page, you'll also see quite a number of beautiful testimonials from people who have worked with Anthony, significant shifts, releasing of old traumas. Anthony oozed the love and holding that we were being encouraged, blissful transformations. So many great testimonial quotes from this work. So you're in really good hands with a very seasoned teacher, and it will create some real magic in your life if you take these practices and put them into motion. So again, it's all at consciousbreathworkcourse.com, consciousbreathworkcourse.com, and you'll get that special 1 hour guided breathwork when you sign up by midnight tonight. So Anthony, it's nearing the end of our time. It's always a pleasure to be with you. You're just really, as I said, emanate the peace and grace that we're all cultivating and aim to cultivate. So thank you for all you've done to be an emissary of a more enlightened way of being for this work. So anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering joining you for the full Conscious Connected Breathwork program?
Well, I think that, yes, there is. There's one statement and there's one request. And the statement is that I think what's going to be most important to us when we have that last breath in our lives is the amount that we loved and the amount that we allowed ourselves to be loved. So if that's our destination, why not do it now? And the request is, if you've got something out of this experience, I hope we get to see each other again, and I hope we get to do the course together. In the meantime, my request from you is to take any energy you might feel that's positive from our experience now and make some random act of kindness. What would that be? To walk out of this experience now and to touch someone's life in an unexpected way. So that would be my request. Let's see how many of those we can get going out there.
Random acts of kindness can certainly change the world. So thank you for inviting people into that. And what a beautiful offering today has been. So thank you, Anthony, for your time, your wisdom. Thank you all for joining. And if you'd like to go further in Conscious Connected Breathwork, all the details are at consciousbreathworkcourse.com, and you'll get that special 1 hour guided breathwork practice when you sign up by midnight tonight. So thank you, Anthony, and thank you all for joining. Many blessings.
Thank you.